people like you are out there doing what you're doing, holding a space for men especially to share their experience so that they don't go out and take it out on their wife, their children.
I will forever be changed by watching you do that.
I'm forever changed by going through it.
When we take responsibility for our lives, we change, and then those around us do.
It wasn't until I got for myself how much of a dick that I'd been to him that things shifted.
Your narrative about them is the truth, but in reality, it's just your perspective.
It takes a whole lot of courage to tell your parents about that, your experience, to say it on a podcast.
I was literally thinking when I said that, I was like, are we really going to say this, bro? Don't do it. Don't do it. He's like, you created a space where people get to be themselves because that's what you needed. Damn.
Ooh.
Like, you're 100% correct. I saw that when I shared my story, my experience, and my tears, the people didn't come for me with pitchforks.
I didn't like the way that I looked. Actually, I hated the way that I looked.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Embracing Human podcast. I am your host today, Scott Stone, and I'm here with a dear brother and friend, Brian Watkinson, who joined me along my coaching journey for a 2-year stint of peeling back the onion. And it has been one of the most incredible experiences I've gotten to sit alongside another man as he takes a look in the mirror. And I did not plan anything for this podcast. I do not know where it will go, but this is an open swimming pool for both of us to just dive into this human experience. And I could not be more excited to be here with you, Brian. And I am really thankful for you taking the time today to share your experience, your wisdom, and to just show who you are for the world.
Incredibly grateful to be here, brother. Really, it's so great to be with you, to share space and time with you. And I'm excited to see where this goes.
I just had this funny experience just watching you and just being like, bro, we could literally sit here for 2 hours and not say a word. That would be enough.
It would.
Because the amount of times, just for everybody's context, like we jumped on here on this call 10 minutes before and have already let the emotions run. And to just sit and witness you, Brian, in your full, your willingness to experience yourself and what comes up and comes through you has been one of the greatest gifts that you've allowed me to receive is you in your full experience. And I got to witness you go through that experience. You know, at the beginning, maybe you weren't super comfortable with your emotions or whatever, but by the end of it, and even today, we're on the call for 5 minutes and you're crying about what I'm sharing. And
yeah,
it's, dude, I am so inspired in the transformation that you've experienced over the past couple of years.
Thank you for that. And, to say that you've led the way in that regard is an understatement. And what's there for me is you, at every point throughout our journey, it occurred to me as not a, hey, I'm your coach, I need to put on a face and act like everything's okay. It was reciprocal in that regard. Where I remember getting on calls with you, I would ask you how you were doing, and you wouldn't just say, good, man, things are great. Meanwhile, quote unquote, life's falling apart. You would take a deep breath, you would be with the question, and then actually share what was actually there for you. And that's made such a profound difference, not only being in a container with you, coaching client container, but also friend, brother. And then for myself, just being able to actually look for myself when somebody asks me a similar question. Yeah. And you throughout, gosh, my willingness to experience my experience is a direct reflection of you.
You know, there's something you did very early on in our meeting that was so inspiring of what I knew was coming. I didn't know what it was going to be, but I could see the power that was coming, which was when we met at that Jesse Coomer Wim Hof Method Fundamentals workshop, and I don't remember where it was at in Ohio, north of Columbus, Ohio.
Yeah.
I was talking to you, and I said something, and you might even remember what I said, but you just got struck with
Yeah.
emotion, walked away, and came back, and we're like how do we stay in touch or something? I don't even remember, but it showed me very early on that you were willing to
Mm.
receive. You were
Yeah.
willing to hear what life had for you.
Yeah. What you said was, I may be paraphrasing. You were talking about your coaching and what you do for people. And you said, I do what I do so that my people like my grandmother don't. You said something
My
along the
grandma
line.
doesn't have to fight for her life anymore.
Yeah. You said something about your grandfather beating the shit out of her. And that was what struck a chord. And I remember walking away and going to the other side of the building to be with myself. I was next to a car and I just let myself let out what was there for me. And then I came back because what you said, man, to me was so inspiring that people like you are out there doing what you're doing, holding a space for men, especially to share their experience so that they don't go out and take it out on their wife or their children or people around them. And whatever it was you were up to, I wanted to be a part of it.
And it's funny, like as you were sharing that, I could feel these parts come up in me, and I was like, "Oh God!" Like, oh, my family listens to this podcast, and did my grandpa really hit my grandma? I don't know. I wasn't there. He died before I was born. Did I hear stories about them fighting? Absolutely.
Mm,
I don't know what that looks like, or what that felt like, or what that experience was, but I can
mm,
feel in my body
mm,
that it wasn't safe. My grandma didn't feel safe.
mm,
Neither of them. My mom's mom, my dad's mom, probably neither of my grandpas in their own experience felt safe, whether that's addiction or shame or violence, whatever. And it became so clearly evident to me that I was going to be the one to break the chain, and it
mm,
didn't even, when it started, it was like, I'm going to break it for my whole family. And then as I went through it, I was like, I am trying to make them wrong so that they change too. And it was like, I'm just going to break it for me. Maybe they
mm,
come along on the journey. Maybe they never do. I have no idea. I just
mm,
know that I am no longer willing to stand for this type of life,
mm,
no longer willing to be the abuser, to be the manipulator, to be the liar,
mm,
and it was the most uncomfortable peeling back of that onion to see all the ways in which I've hurt people and lied and manipulated and did some really shitty things. And
mm,
to go take responsibility for that, I think it's the only, not the only, but it's a very large part as to why I am able to do what I do. And to see you step into that container, you know, every week for 2 years, bro,
mm,
like just so inspiring, so
mm,
inspiring to for you to embody that. And it just strikes me as such a level of courage
mm,
for you to bring your experience, your relationship with, whether it's your father or your mother or your partner or your business or your money, and to just lay it on the table and just say, hey, like, I want to see how I feel about myself in these places. Wow. Like, I will forever be changed by watching you do that.
yeah. I'm forever changed by going through it. Man,
Tell
but
me what, or, okay, please.
yeah, gosh. What I learned growing up is hold it all together, look good, make sure you don't show emotion. That's the way that I wound up. And to be inside the container and to, like you said, peel that back and allow myself to experience my experience made the world of a difference. I remember actually, I was in Italy in the Vatican, actually, which there's rabbit holes associated with that, but we won't go there.
Different podcast.
Yeah.
Episode 2.
But I was listening to a Peter Crone podcast in the Vatican. In case anybody wants to get a little insight into me, that explains a lot. um, I was far more concerned with the Peter Crone podcast than the stuff on the wall. And actually, my mom, I had these headphones. I had it in one ear. My mom had hers in the other. We were just walking through listening to the Peter Crone podcast, but I had an experience where he said something, and it was regarding, you know, painting a picture of like what perfection looks like, and then having to live up to that standard. And for me, that was my grandfather. And whatever he said and whatever I experienced and was there for me, it struck something similar to the way that it did when before we got on, started recording. I was in the middle of the Vatican with I don't know how many people around me. And I said, "Hey, mom, I've got to go feel this." And she goes, "Okay, bathroom?" I said, "Yeah." So my dad's there on the trip too. Go to the bathroom. I go into a bathroom stall and just experience my experience. But I learned that through you.
Mm.
I didn't learn that. The way that I wound up would have just bottled that up and probably would still be carrying it with me. Yeah. And that isn't that's what I do now. I pause, I actually experience what's there for me. I've got nothing about crying.
Mm.
Whereas before I did.
Mm.
Yeah.
Man, you shared something there about being in the Vatican with your mom and having one earphone in and her having the other. And
Mm,
just it made me think, like most people have it that, like, okay, if only my parents changed, if my parents would just go to therapy and see that they're the problem, then my life would be better,
mm,
which we know that that's literally the opposite of what happens is when we take responsibility for our lives, we change and then those around us do. And I'm curious, what has been the product of your transformation and your responsibility for your life on those around you?
I'll use my dad as an example
Please.
because my relationship with my mom has always been, in my experience, fantastic. And it's only gotten better as I've done the work. In my relationship with my dad, there was resentment, there was anger, there was frustration, there was making him wrong. And like you said, it was he had to change. And as soon as if he would just change, I would be okay. My life would be better. And what really shifted for me was how much of an asshole that I was as it relates to my dad. Like, one, he loves the shit out of me, always has. And he's supported me in so many ways, still does. And it wasn't until I got for myself how much of a dick that I'd been to him that things shifted
Mm.
because I took responsibility for who I was being, which, in my experience was a dick. That then shifted things because it wasn't actually my dad what he was doing or saying. It was the filter through which I was viewing my dad. It was how I was describing or creating my dad. Peter says, if like if you want to know how a relationship is, just have a person just, describe the other person to them. But they don't realize that they're creating the other person and that's who they become for them, but they're the one that made it up in the first place. And if you were to ask somebody else if that's the same experience of that person, no way, especially their best friend or somebody who they just met or their mom or
Mhm.
right. That was the breakthrough in my experience in many of the relationships around me.
I hope people are listening to that and really got how profound what you just said was, that we are creating the relationship with the other person and who they are in our language. Because I
Yeah.
have I have never met your dad. I have no story about him, not a single one. I barely have a story about your mom because she sometimes messages me about, my dog pictures, which is so cute. So cute. But, I have no narrative about them,
Yeah.
but somehow for you, because of the way the ego works and thrives in survival, is your narrative about them is the truth. But
Hmm.
in reality, it's just your perspective. Right. And so
Yeah.
what I want to acknowledge you for how big of a person it takes for you to own that, for you to own the way in which you were being for your dad, which of course that, if you're in a state of survival and fight or flight, like he's going to meet you through mirror neurons alone in in that experience. And I remember back to you telling me about how pissed you got one time because you were visiting him and you were working. He's like, "Oh, you're just going to work again?" And you're like, "Dude, this guy never gives me a break." And it was like, "No, dude wants to hang out with you."
Yeah.
But like because of the unpacked feelings, like that literally has to occur that way.
Yeah.
You said that your relationship with your mom has always been fantastic.
Mm.
And I
Mm.
would wonder if that little boy in that field who was left alone would have said
Mm.
that that was fantastic.
No. That's been my experience with my mom. If I look at it, well, subjectively from where I am today, that doesn't mean that each and every aspect of or time within our relationship has been perfect or fantastic.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you for the clarification.
Yeah. And I was thinking about this the other day. Well, one, we train people around us to act and behave in a certain way. We all do it. And I see in my own relationship, like where I've trained Taylor.
Mm.
I see in my relationship with my mom where I've trained her. And I remember I used to get home from a day of work, say hello to my mom, it maybe, and I would go right into the basement, turn on a podcast, and then just be down there for hours. But that was okay inside the relationship with me and my mom because I trained her for that to be okay. Does that communicate?
100%.
Yeah. Going back to the little kid and for context so people get what the little boy in the field means. Um, I had an experience when I was younger where me, my mom, and a guy that she was dating at the time, she introduced me to him. I had met him for the first time, and we were all walking through the park. And I remember they walked before me, and must have been, I don't know, 20 to 30 yards back behind them. It's maybe, I don't know, 7, 8, 9, somewhere around that. I just had this experience like my mom was choosing him over me. And then we got in the car, we went home. I don't remember that, but I remember being home, locking myself in the bathroom, sitting on top of the bathroom tank, oddly enough, and just crying. And what I made up after that was, well, I ruined their relationship because of my reaction, right? Which is perfect for an 8 or 9 year old kid that landed on a meaning that he ascribed to something. But yeah, so in that experience, it wasn't fantastic. And I can be with all of that too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's interesting that I find many of the scars in my relationship with people, hypothetical scars, have actually, once looked at, bring us closer. I shared that experience with my mom. She's like, I don't even remember that.
Right.
I'm like,
Right.
all right. Meanwhile, it was super significant for me.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, I really appreciate you saying that because it reminded me of an experience I had. I was I don't know, 9, 10 maybe. My brother wasn't driving yet, so I definitely wasn't, in my teens. My brother's almost 5 years older than me, four and a half, four and some change. And one of my friends had forced me to give him oral sex. He was abusing me. And my brother walked in and caught us and, instantly just shamed me, fucking faggot and all this stuff. And, he's being a teenager. Like he's just doing what we did. But in that moment, I made up like I am wrong. I am
Mm,
wrong. And if I don't get it together, then my family's not going to love me. And, my brother ran off. I freak out. And then all of a sudden, the only thing I remember after that is my parents coming downstairs and, they asked me like, and I just remember like, my experience was like, they were like giants, like towering over me. Like, what did you do? And I was just like,
yeah.
nothing. I didn't do anything. Like, well, Mike said you did this. And I was like, no, he's lying. I had to negate it because if my parents reacted like my brother reacted, I was dead. Like I
Mm,
wouldn't have my family anymore. And so I stuffed it down. And
mm,
it took me years of work and therapy and all that stuff to get to a point where I was safe enough to share that with my family. And I remember sharing it with my parents, and God bless them. My mom like laughed at me, which was, okay, we're going back to therapy. We're gonna take that one back to therapy, like, into her evolution, like she didn't get how significant it was. And and I can be with
yeah.
that. But my
Mm,
brother, we were driving to get Chinese food takeout. I'm in the car driving, and I tell my brother, like, hey man, like I've been unpacking a lot of stuff from my childhood and therapy, and like I just want to share this thing with you because like it really shaped our relationship. And he's like, okay, oh, kind of hesitant, like, okay. And I was like, this happened, and and this is what you did, and this is what I remember. And he just stopped and he was like, damn man, I'm sorry. He's like, I was just being a stupid teenager. I'm so sorry that like affected you so much. Like I love you. And I was just like, and then he said that. I don't even remember that. And I was like, what? I like tattooed that on the inside of my skull, like I
yeah.
never forgot that. And he's like, honestly don't remember that at all. And I'm really sorry that that happened to you and that you've had to carry that. Like, that's really unfortunate. And I was
Mm,
just like, damn, like, and it's that moment, right? Of like, wow, I felt so much closer to my brother because he was actually getting his brother. And I wasn't
mm,
getting the story of who he still was because of that unprocessed thing.
yeah.
And that's, I so agree with you, Brian, about when we step into that circle and we're like, hey, this is my experience of you. It's like from a place of genuineness, not like this, like, okay, let's get in a circle and put on your gloves because I'm about to call you a narcissist, like not
Mm-hmm.
that kind of thing, but like, hey, this is the pain that I carry. Like, oh, whew, oh man, that's a whole different thing.
Thank you for sharing. It takes a whole lot of courage to tell your parents about that, to share with your brother about that, your experience, how you might have held it against him, to say it on a podcast.
I was literally thinking when I said that, I was like, are we really gonna say this, bro? Don't do it. Don't do it, bro. Like just give the highest fake details. And it was just
Yeah,
like, dude, this is what happened. Like I feel like I have to, and I don't have
yeah,
to. I choose to because I'm at a place of peace with it. But like, man,
yeah,
I wouldn't be you would have to hit my fingers with a baseball bat 5 years ago to have me share that story publicly. And I,
yeah,
I there might only be 50 listens to this podcast. Like I don't know. I have no idea.
yeah.
I'm calling in 5 million, but Who knows?
Yeah,
But thank you.
yeah. You're welcome. And it speaks to the depth of the work that you've done in being willing to hold a space for that part of you that just now didn't even want to say that. And that he's welcome too.
Right, right.
Yeah.
I knew that was coming with this journey of this podcast. Was like, I'm gonna create a space where all of me is welcome. I practiced it so deeply with breath work and the cold plunge clubs and seeing that, like, God, man, people are so inherently loving, like so loving. And I think the only reason the internet even has the chance of existing the way it does is because we're all behind this illusion of a screen, keyboard warrioring, like, oh, well, they can't do anything. But like, man, I would say the vast majority of people would never say the things to these other people in person. It's just like it's so hard for me to grasp, or
Mm.
you're really hurting. But yeah, it's man, yeah, I did not see that one coming.
Yeah. And that's the beauty of
Right,
it.
right.
Yeah. And I mentioned this before we got on. Like, what was it for you that really not sparked this podcast, but what was it that made it safe and okay for you to be on it and to share and experience anything that came up for you? And for those who might not have, who not know, at least this is my occurring world and experience. It wasn't like oh, goody, I'm going to start a podcast and I'm going to create this tomorrow. And then I'm just going to get on there and have people come on and that'll be great.
Right.
Like there were things to work through to get to where you are today, to even have the first podcast, let alone
Yeah.
however many you've had so far.
Yeah. I think your episode, I don't know, we're sub 20, but we're on our way.
Beautiful.
Like, so two things come to mind. One is the cold plunge clubs, like leading breath work in general. What I realized in those moments was when I created a space for people to feel deeply and really experience the totality of their human journey, I realized that I got to do the same. I'll never
Mm.
forget this. I was at a cold plunge club and one of my friends, Dominic, came up to me and he's like, bro, I get it. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, I get why you do this. And I was like, yeah, tell me why. And, just like curious of what he's going to say. He's like, you created a space where people get to be themselves because that's what you needed. And I was just like, damn,
Ooh.
like, that's it. You're 100% correct. That is why I do this. It's because I was so deep in a pattern called people pleasing that, like, oh, well, if I help you heal, you'll help me heal, right? And so I found through the grace of God breath work, and I was like, okay, I'm going to help all these people. And in turn, it helped me. It helped me make sense of my life, that my family still loves me, that like I love me, that like, that the abuse was real, like all that stuff. Like it just made me understand my experience on such a deep level. And so, the first aspect of that is like I saw that when I shared my story, my experience, and my tears, the people didn't come for me with pitchforks. They
Mm.
weren't like, oh, what a pussy. They were like, wow, how courageous, how strong you are to be able to, whether it's keep going or share that honestly and openly. Like that was really profound. So that was the first one. The second one was uh, coaching, was being in a space with you or with other men and women to have these deep, profound conversations of like, wow, we're just sitting here talking. And just by the pure fact of us talking, our lives are changing, whether it's yours or mine or both or the people around us. Like these conversations matter deeply. And um, the other is I just love podcasts. I found the Tim Ferriss show like, I don't even know, 10 years ago or something, long time ago, back when he was like less than 100 episodes in. He's got like 800 now. Like this is so much later.
Mm.
And I was just so deeply moved by how him and another man, for example, could sit and talk for 2, 3 hours about the intricacies of life and passions and purpose and struggle and strife. And I was like, I want to do that. I want to
Mm,
get so good at listening and questions and meeting amazing, inspiring humans that I can do that. And to your
mm,
point, for the context of how long it took, like I called this podcast in multiple years ago. I had a list before I even moved to Hawaii of like 100 people I wanted to interview, all people I knew. There was maybe like, there was like 70 people of like my network. And then there was like 20, it was like Tony Robbins, Peter Crone, Aubrey
yeah.
Marcus, like Gandhi. Of just like, I'm going to go for this thing. And, then fast forward a little bit, I started looking at it in Ohio. And then I was like, at the time I was like, I don't want to do this alone. I do everything alone. And then, Leo calls me to Hawaii, and then it was like, I want to start a podcast. And he's like, let's do it. And I was like, really? And he's like, I'm down. And I was like, okay. And, and then we invested like 5 grand into the podcast before we even hit record. We bought
Hmm.
microphones, we bought podcasting equipment, we bought cameras and camera stands and like this whole back, like all of it. Like we built the whole set. And I was like, okay. And then I made a post about it. And this is an important takeaway, I believe. I made a post about it and I said, coming soon, the Embracing Human podcast. Technically, it was the To Be Human podcast because that was what I wanted it to be originally. But I got a close friend of mine whose podcast is the To Be Human podcast. It's called To Be Human. And I was like, it's not that close, but it's close enough. And I asked her, and what's funny is, and she's in the Peter Crone community, and I asked her, and at first she was like, I don't care. Thanks for asking. Do it anyway. And like a day later, she messaged me. She's like, actually, I'd rather you don't. And I was like, okay, heard. And I could have still gone with it. She wasn't like, you are not allowed or whatever. She was like a very open and conscious human. But I just
Mm,
felt like okay, I can honor that. Like I got enough ideas. And I really, okay. So my point was I made the post though, and I said this coming soon. And I
yeah.
got so many texts and responses and likes and hearts that I was like, we did it. I got such a dopamine or serotonin rush, whichever chemical flew into my body, oxytocin, all of the above. I was like,
Yeah.
we're there. And this was in like August of last year.
Mm,
And for like the next 6 months, I sat on it. I was like, cool, we did it. We're there. And it was like, we didn't record a single show, dude. What are you talking about? Like, we haven't edited anything. We don't have a footprint on Spotify, YouTube. Like, we haven't done anything yet, bro. Like, we just built the set. That's it. But there is something too. The brain doesn't know the difference between reality and imagination. That's why
mm,
visualization is so powerful because our brain experiences it the same. And so when I said it's here and I got all that reaction, it was here and I didn't have to do anything. And then it
mm,
was like a couple more months where I was like, dude, I have to launch this. And so I told Leo, I was like, I want to put the date on the calendar. We're going to hit record and we're going to call it the first episode. I don't care what comes out, and we had to work through some stuff too. Cause he's like, I don't want to prep. And I was like, I don't know about that, dude. I was like, that feels so vulnerable. Like, he's like, I want it to be authentic. And I was like, me too. And he's like, then I don't want it to look like a show. And I was like, that's fair. I'll meet you there. I'll try it. I'll see what happens. And
mm,
so that for Leo and I, like, we don't, when we sit down, we don't plan a single thing like this. Like, we don't come in with bullet points. We don't come in with topic ideas. What we do is like right before the conversation, we have a conversation and we're like, what are you going through? What am I going through? Okay, let's talk about that. Let's talk about
mm,
brotherhood. Let's talk about relationships. Let's talk about, or it's something going on in the macro. It's like, oh, you know, money volatility. Okay, let's talk about money. That's the way we built it. But we had to go through that of like, well, I want it this way and I want it this way. And so there was a lot of blocks to work through and to address and to sit with before I was really willing and able to hit record. And then
mm,
even after we launched it, and I started interviewing people, a whole nother wave of this came through of like, okay, like I'm listening to podcasts and researching people, which I still do and I still appreciate, but I don't like bring that in as like okay, I'm gonna ask this question, 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 then I'm gonna do these ones, and then we're done. It's like I'm gonna write all these questions out and then I'm not even gonna bring them. I'm just gonna let them be. And I'm gonna remember through my experience of like, oh, like, you know, I just interviewed a performing artist, a musician who's amazing, Drew McManus, a satsang, and I had all these questions, and I was like, no, like I'm just gonna remember like brotherhood, creative expression, family, like struggle, and that was it. And it was one of my favorite episodes to just go in and have another brother on the show, just like deeply vulnerable and authentic. And
Hmm.
yeah, it's been a real journey because it is such a vulnerable thing
Hmm.
to put myself out there, and to, yes, I get to edit these as I wish. For the most part, my editor sends me the take, and I maybe will cut out 5 seconds in an episode. I think that's the most I've cut out, is like 3 seconds.
Hmm.
I don't cut out, oh, like I'm not going to cut out that thing I said earlier. I just know I won't. It's just like
Yeah.
it means too much to me,
Hmm.
because I know I've had it happen before, and I know it will continue, or someone will message me like, that conversation changed my life. Like what
Yeah.
you shared there is like so helpful. So thank you for being
Yeah.
courageous.
It is when we are authentic that people actually get to see and experience themselves through you.
Mm-hmm.
If everything's all good and dandy, they don't get that.
Right.
And I bet at least a few people can relate to either one, what happened, to the experience, or something in the world of that they can resonate with and that'll make a difference for them by
Right.
virtue of you being willing to be vulnerable.
Mm. Yeah. Thank you for the reminder, because I'm still second guessing it. No, I agree, man. And I
Yeah.
actually, while you were sharing that, it made me think of your bodybuilding journey,
Hmm.
and how you first transformed your body and then transformed your relationship to it,
Yeah.
and then transformed your relationship to sharing that.
Yeah.
And I'm curious how that changed for you over the years, like how people, first met you as this bodybuilder, and then they met you as the coach, and then they met you as the guy, the man.
Yeah. For context, like what's there for me was when I was 14 or so, maybe 13, 14. I was what some people would consider, for my size, overweight. And more than that, the filter through which I looked through didn't like what was reflected back to it, or said in a easier way to digest. I didn't like the way that I looked. Actually, I hated the way that I looked. Like that was my experience. That was my relationship to myself and my body. And I would walk through school and put on 2 or 3 layers because I thought it hid my fat. I wouldn't wear, you wouldn't see me without a shirt on anywhere, including the beach or pool or places like that. And that relationship to myself didn't transform for another, gosh, maybe 10 years. And that was a large, actually, probably the soul, the main driver of one, why I got in the gym in the first place. Two, I experienced what I'll call the success that I experienced in bodybuilding, why I was willing to take myself to places that many people aren't as it relates to training and eating and doing what's wanted and needed to be at, let's say, 4 5% body fat to go step on stage. And it got to a point where I was the leanest I'd ever been. I had the most amount of muscle tissue on my body for the leanest that I was. Like I looked the best that I ever have in my life. And yet I was still unhappy. And it really got from myself that, wow, it doesn't matter how much I change my body, that won't make the difference. And then it was an exploration of the mind because I got from myself that, well, one, where am I coming from in all of this? And I got to sit with and be with the different parts of me, especially that 13 or 14-year-old who essentially hated himself in the way that he looked. And then I, one, got to reconcile that, and two, then share that with others. And I remember, like, I, for people who don't know, I worked as a health and fitness coach for a couple years. And I would get on calls with people who would inquire about what I did and coaching, etc. And that would be one of the first things that I shared with them. Like, hey, this is who I consider myself to be. This is why I do what I do. This is what I learned through my experience. And this is why, I would love to work with you. And yeah, it's been different. It's been interesting the different stages throughout that entire journey, including where I'm at today and being able to reflect upon all of it.
You were like, I would say primarily focused on yourself during our coaching journey, but also in there is the transformation coach you were as the bodybuilding coach and whatnot. And I got to watch how that shifted over the years of like, yeah, like I'm gonna help you get your physique. And then it became yes, and with a relationship to yourself. And it occurs to me as not that common, not
Mm,
nearly as common in that world of like, most people are, I'll get you the physical results, but I won't get you the mental results as well.
mm,
And yeah, to really see that shift in you, to really see it land in you of because I got to witness you, whether it was like working out less or just enjoying the gym more. Like I remember when you talk about like, well, I just go to the gym to get my anger out. And then you were like, I go to the gym to have fun.
yeah.
And I don't remember if you had cycled off of TRT when you were working with me or not, like if it was before, but just
Yeah.
the relationship you had to like really changing your relationship to life and therefore
Mm,
your body. And it, just it's such a powerful stand for true love for yourself.
yeah. How the part of you that came in that was like, man, I can't really, gosh, I'm really going to share this.
I want, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's there for me right now. So just being with it. What sparked that and getting off of TRT, for those that aren't aware, testosterone replacement therapy is took steroids when I was 20, started taking steroids, and I had needle in hand. Actually, no, I'm sorry, needle in thigh. And I had this thought, this experience that said, stop hurting me. And so I took it out, I put it aside, and I listened, and I stopped pinning or injecting. And I just went what people call cold turkey. And I did that for months. And that was the longest. I had, cycled on, cycled off throughout the however many years that I experimented with that throughout the bodybuilding career, etc. But that was so transformative for me in my experience with my relationship to myself, my body, etc. Because there was a part of me that relied on that to look, at least it quenched the part of me that didn't like the way that I looked. It was like, well, at least I have this and I'll have some muscle and da da da. But there was a let go, a surrender in that. And then for the next close to a year, I don't remember how long, I just stopped. And I wasn't going to the gym nearly as much as I was before. And instead, I was doing yoga and breath work and cold therapy and exposure and healing, like inside of this container with you. And I went from maybe 200 and something pounds down to 170. It was the lightest I'd been since like high school or early college. But it was one of the best years of my life. There was a let go, a surrender inside of that experience that I can't really articulate or explain. But to rely on something like that to feel good, to then just let go and be with whatever showed up for me, including the thoughts that arose in my experience when I was looking at myself in the mirror and I was 30 pounds lighter than I was, 6, 8, 12 months ago.
Mm.
Yeah. All
Mm.
the while being a health and fitness coach
Mm.
and
I
thinking that I needed to look a certain way to be that.
I just, as you share that, but thank you for sharing that, Brian. And
Yeah,
uh,
you're welcome.
I know that is going to help multiple men. I'm thinking of them right now because they're likely to listen to this podcast because I might send it to them. But this, this like, trying to be someone, seeing what happens when we stop. And I'd be lying if I said it was comfortable. It's really uncomfortable sometimes, especially in the beginning of just like, oh, no wonder I was doing this stuff. I do not like who I am,
Mm,
you know. And over time, letting life kind of through the mortal and pestle effect of just grinding us into the stone, and just like, okay, we're gonna transform you, So it ain't gonna be fun, but it will be rewarding. I know there are multiple men out there that would just love to hear another man's experience of like, I'm not here to try and pretend,
mm.
like to just be real. It's so deeply profound, and I just appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah, thanks for providing a space for me to.
Yeah. What I got to witness in you is you, and I think I said it to you one day in a coaching session of like, you don't have to be that big anymore, or like you don't have to be that strong anymore. You can set this down,
Mm,
and to see how your body shifted as a product of like you not having to be so strong, whether it's for your family or for your partner or for your business. Like Brian could just be Brian and not, this extra performance, and I've
yeah.
gotten to see that for myself too. And it was really beautiful to witness because it allowed me to see for myself too of like, okay, where's my version of that?
Mm, yeah, thank you. Yeah, what showed up in what you were sharing is I remember I was working one day and I used to work in a supplement store. And there was a guy who I knew from the gym, but I hadn't seen him in months because I changed gyms, da da da. He came in and he saw me much lighter than he saw me before. And I don't remember exactly what he said, but let's say for this story, it's wow, you cut down quite a bit. And I shared with him the experience that I just shared. He was like, "Oh, okay, cool." Whatever his reaction was, I was like, "Dude, why the fuck did you just even say that to him? Are you serious?" And like, I got to look at that part of me too. It's like you could have just said, "Thanks, man. Yeah, I've been cutting the last however many months." But for some reason, that's what came through, and it was okay.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah. It just really speaks to the volume of which you were at peace with it. You
yeah,
could share it with this guy and just being like, yeah, this is my story. This is it.
yeah.
I want to take a hard turn because I consider this area of your life to be as profound a shift as the bodybuilding and the way in which you relate to your body, and that is your relationship with Taylor, your partner. I remember when you first met her. I remember when you talked about wanting to move in. I remember when you were like, I'm going to move to Florida. I like all of it, like all these different aspects, this like, and I don't even know if it occurred to even me as running away. It was just like, like, Brian's going to choose Brian. And then your shift in that. And then just tell me a little bit about what that journey was like. Cause I see it as such a fulfilling aspect of your life now.
Yeah, that was, and it's interesting the way that you created it just there, Brian trying to run away. And yeah, that was a large aspect of it.
Mm.
I also felt like I needed to be somewhere else in order to succeed, whatever that means.
Right. That's what it was. I remember that being your
Yeah,
languaging.
yeah. Like I needed to be in Florida in order to succeed, or really said another way, in order to be okay.
Mhm.
Like I need this new environment, something outside of myself to experience being okay,
Mm.
which is, something we can all relate to. For me, it was moving to Florida. For others, it's, whatever it is. For those that don't know, I'm in a relationship with Taylor, as Scott said, and been together for about a year and a half now, which is pretty wild to reflect on because it doesn't feel like it's been a year and a half, and in the best way possible. And there was a point, I don't know, maybe 5, 6 months in, where I was set on moving to Florida. For context, I live in New Jersey. Taylor lives in New Jersey. My mom lives in New Jersey. I grew up in New Jersey, and there was just something about Florida and the experience, or really what my brain was projecting, what that would make available moving to Florida, that was very attractive to me. And I wanted Taylor to go with me. Taylor has an incredible family. She has a twin sister. Their relationship is, if I could explain it in a way where people might get it, it's like, that's her other half. And I remember sitting on the couch that's right next to me, and we're having a discussion, and she says to me, I can't do it. And I can't do it was moving to Florida. And right then and there, I get it. I get it. You're one, you have your twin sister, your family, your work, your life, your upbringing. It's all here. And, what we created there was, why don't we stay here, and then we can, look at Florida later.
Right.
And then you said something like, choosing Brian. I did choose Brian. And choosing Brian was choosing to stay in New Jersey, and choosing Taylor, and choosing the life that I've created here. Yeah. And then looking back, I'm so fucking grateful that I did. Yeah. And that whole experience was so challenging to navigate, man, because it was something that I thought I wanted so badly, and I did at the time. Yeah. And having to choose between that and her, when it got down to it, it was her all the way. Yeah.
I remember those calls, man. I really give it to you for being fully open and honest with like, I want this. I want to move. I feel like I have to. And, like you said, this relationship, this closeness you have with your mom, like she was down to move down there as well. And you
Mm-hmm.
were ready and you went and visited all this
Mm-hmm.
stuff. And then, something shifted inside you where you were like, I know what I want. And it's not about Florida, and it was like, okay, great. I support you, man. Do it.
Mm.
And to see you, what that was December of 23,
Somewhere around there.
somewhere in that range. Now
Yeah.
you live together and like,
Yeah.
and for you to full cycle that, like, it opened up new possibilities for you and Taylor too, of like moving in together and getting married, like all this stuff. Just like, but you had to go into the cave. You had to go find the dragon.
Yeah, it's what I needed. It's what our relationship needed, looking back at it. And it's there for me too. And, I share this because it might make a difference for somebody else. In my past relationships, there was a pattern where around like the year mark, a year and a half mark, I'd have thoughts and feelings and experiences of what it would be like to be with somebody else,
Mhm.
fantasize about it in a way,
Yep, I get that.
and maybe not in a way, and look at and make wrong all the things in the relationship that weren't working, that would have been better somewhere else according to my brain and what it was projecting. And I remember having a call with committed listener, and what I had gotten from myself is I made up that love, or really, because what I was experiencing was, this isn't it. Like, this can't be love. I should be feeling different. This should look different. It definitely shouldn't be this way. And what I got from myself is I made up what love should look like. And when it wasn't that, then, I would have all of these thoughts, experiences, etc., of an unmet expectation that my brain generated in the first place, that isn't actually reality. Most people have a picture perfect idea of what love looks like. It feels a certain way, it looks a certain way in many aspects.
Mm-hmm.
And when it's not that, then thoughts and experiences arise like, is this really it? Is she the one? Are they the one? Etc. But I got from myself that I was comparing it to something that I made up.
Well, your share didn't have to go very far for it to matter because it hits, man. It hits so deeply. I've known Amber for 2 years. We've been together. I could say for about one. There were some rocky patches in there, but ultimately, like, committed to each other about a year ago. I would say I probably committed to her about 6 months ago, but infantile me had to have his tantrums first.
Hmm.
That was more than 6 months. Jesus, it's May already. Okay, it's more than 6 months, babe. If you're listening, it's more than 6 months. But I remember looking at it on paper and I was like, just being like, okay, this is what it looks like. And being like, well, that's not the blueprint.
Mm,
She's got 5 kids and she's been divorced and, she can't travel all over the world with me and all this stuff. And this is what it should look like. And she was like, okay, do it. If that's what you think love is, do it. I'm not going to stop you. She's like, Scott, I've lived that life. I've been married. I have multiple children. I've done all those things. And on the other side of them, I realized that that didn't bring it either. That I didn't get to some arrival point because of the thing that the fairy tale told me I needed. And if you
mm,
still feel like you need that, I support you. I love you. I will always love you. And I want you to have that if that's what you feel like will make you whole. I'm just letting you know I realized for myself that it didn't. And I really enjoy what we have. And I will be here as long as you want it. And, like, do what you need to do. And it really gave me the permission to look at, like, what do I really want?
mm,
Do I want my own children? And if I like really look at it, I'm like, meh, I could take it or leave it. Like mostly leave it. Like I'm not really that interested in it. And sometimes I could blame that on a money story, and sometimes I could blame that on a state of the world story. But kind of deep down, I'm like, I don't know if that's really important to me. Like I have such a deep and profound impact on others in my life. I don't know if I feel the need to recreate myself personally. That's my own experience. And I own that as mine. And then in the regards to like the one and what should she look like and all that stuff, I was putting this idealized fantasy up against like you said, something I created. And now I get to look at these beautiful experiences we get to have of like real, authentic, vulnerable, loving, co-creative expression together. And it's like, damn, like this is unique. I have never experienced this in my entire life. And like you said earlier, like running, like leaving to Florida was this like needing to be okay. And
mm,
it hit me of like, oh yeah, mine is like, I'm okay being single. I'm actually not okay being single, but I'm okay being not okay. I've gotten so good at it being hard that I'm just like, yeah, this isn't perfect according to the script that I wrote. That, you know what, I'm just going to torpedo it so that I can be right about my circumstance and then I'll figure it out. Because my
yeah,
narrative was that I always needed to be alone to transform. I needed to put myself in so much misery and hell that I would force myself into evolution. But
yeah,
like that's old programming. I don't believe in that anymore. Like I don't believe in this forceful aspect of changing my life now.
mm,
And so, it has, and she's been so generous and so loving about letting me express myself and really having my experience. And, at some point, her being like, you know what, Scott, like I love you and I'm totally down to let you have your experience. And like, I'm only going to listen to this so much before I just honor you. You can't decide that you choose this, or you can't choose that you choose this.
mm,
At some point I'm going to choose then, and we did have that point in our relationship right before we got together. I was like, I want my cake and I want to eat it too. I want you, but I also want to date other women. And she's like, okay, I'm gonna do it too. And I was like, wait, what? She's like, bro, you're not committing. And I was like,
mm,
oh yeah, no, that's what this feels like. This feels awful. Oh, I don't want that. And it was like, damn, like, and it took some really rough, whether it's conversation or experiences, to just be like, ugh, like I don't want relationships like that anymore. I don't want this half in, half out. Like I want
mm,
all in, and it's taken a lot of really hard and beautiful conversations and experiences and
mm,
to like bring us to a point where we're like, okay, let's do it.
mm.
And I think it was Peter Crone that said like some relationship coach told him like, I don't trust any relationship that hasn't been to the brink of annihilation.
Ah,
And I think we both have experienced that of like, okay, like I'm gonna let it go. And then it's like, no, you're not. Life's like, come on.
mm,
It's like, oh, okay.
mhm,
But and the same
yeah,
goes for that inner work of like, no, I'm gonna hold it, I'm gonna hold it, I'm gonna hold it. I can't hold it. Okay, let it go. Oh, you don't have to let it go. That's not what we're doing here. just wanted to see what you were up to, just wanted to see your come from. And like this self-awareness, self-actualization, evolution game it's sneaky. There's no manual for it. It's so elegant. I look at life with so much reverence of like, wow. Like Amber and I were at karaoke a couple nights ago, and she's just a slayer on the mic. So like she goes up
Nice.
and sings this song, and there's this table sitting next to us. I have Luce there, and so there's like three different tables. There's probably 10 different people that are like, "Oh my god, I love your dog," and da da da. Amber's beautiful, and she goes up and slays this song and sits back down, and this like 19-year-old blonde girl, beautiful, is like, I'm so jealous of your life, and Amber just like, oh god, girl, if you only knew. Like if you only knew what, and she was like, yeah, I love my life too. And if you only
Mm,
knew what it took to get here. She's like, but it was this like funny thing of like, this girl's she's ripping a vape and she's talking about how hard Tinder is and like all that, so like she's got her own version of her hard. And
yeah.
by societal things, like, oh, she's beautiful and she's blonde and she's got a voluptuous body, like all this stuff. And it's like she's got her own version, like, and every one
Hmm.
of us do, whether it's a money thing, it's a bank account, relationship, it's a parent or like familial thing. It's like it's so exquisite how intelligent life is to be like, I got something for you.
Mm, yeah, so beautifully said, man. There are two things that are there for me. One is Peter Crone's quote, life will present you with people and circumstances to reveal where you're not free, and just how effortlessly it does that. And two, you talk about commitment and being kind of on the edge or on the brink of it collapsing before like truly leaning in and committing. I would assert that a lot of men are at that place where they're not fully both feet over the line in and committed in their relationship. What would you say to them?
Hmm. The thing that just popped into my head, and I don't know if I've ever said this before, if you don't revere the ground that your woman walks on, you're likely forgetting you walk on it too. Like if you think your woman should be different, take a look in the mirror,
Mm,
because that's been my experience, of like, oh, my partner needs to be more sexual. What's that look like for me? Where am I leaking energy? Oh, my partner needs to be more fit. Yeah, what's that look like for me? Oh, my partner needs
mhm.
to make more money. Yeah, what's that look like for me? And
Yeah.
really, like, okay, do you think the grass is greener? Yeah, the grass is greener where you water it, fam. And just let's be clear, it will get greener if you water it. And that's been like one of the most beautiful things I've gotten to witness in the evolution of my relationship with Amber is like we both are committed to having real conversation and hard conversation. Not hard in the sense of like, ooh, I don't want to have this. Hard in the sense of like, well, no, it is that. It's like I don't want to say this out loud. I don't want to be vulnerable. Like, oh, like this past weekend I got food poisoning or some sort of stomach bug. I don't know. I was puking, I was shitting, like it was just awful, bro. I was like on the floor writhing in pain and crying. Like it was unattractive.
Mm,
And I told her, I was like, oh, I am getting to see a limiting belief that I have about myself. And she's like, yeah, what's that? And I was like, I feel like a drag.
mm,
I feel like a downer, like, oh, here Scott is again. Like just being lame. Oh, now he's sick. Like he's just always talking about heavy shit, and here he is now being sick, and I got to take care of him. Like I was like, I'm sorry. Like I'll just go home. I don't want you to have to deal with me. And she's like, what are you talking about? And I was like, I'm over here like wanting to die, like not wanting to die. But I'm over here just feeling like absolute hell, and like it's Mother's Day, and like what you got to put up with me. She's like, Scott, I have never once had to put up with you.
mm,
And I'm just like, what? It's just these subtle invitations of like, take one step closer to my experience. And like, I shared, I was just like, yeah, I feel like I'm something you have to deal with. And I've felt that way in every relationship, and I just start crying. She
mm,
just sits there with me and she's just like, oh, I bet that's really hard, I was like, yeah, it's hard. Like, I feel like a fucking loser. I feel like such a burden, such like a weight that someone else has got to carry. And she doesn't sit there and try to fix me. She doesn't try to change me. She doesn't try to perspective me. She just sits there and just puts her hand on me and she's like, I hear you. And I just cry. Just let it out. Just let that younger version of me have his experience that he never got to have because he was too busy fearing rejection or fearing abandonment or fearing worthlessness. Yeah, that sucks. That is an awful place. I don't want to live there. Like, Yeah, babe, I bet. Like that sounds really heavy. Like, are you willing to entertain the possibility that I love you and I choose you and it's an honor to take care of you when you're sick, that you let me? She's cooking me dinner and all this stuff. I'm like, damn, like she made me vegetable soup, like just from scratch, organic veggies, sourdough toast. I'm like, dude, I'm so lucky.
Mm,
I'm so loved, I'm so cherished, honored, revered, respected, adored.
mm,
God, I want to show up like that for her. And then last
mm,
night, same thing happened. She was in it. And we make the joke like neither of us struggle at the same time. One of us is likely in it, but it's not the same time, or we're both not in it. But when someone's in it, the other person usually isn't. And to just sit there with her last night, it's just like, hey, babe, I get it. Like, I'm not going anywhere. I'll be with you here in this, you
mm,
know? And she just sat there and, acknowledged that it was in her version, her way, easier to run, easier to just go be by herself because that's what she knows. And I was like, I hear you. It's different now. I'm here with you. I'll stay with you as long as you need in this.
mm,
She's just crying, just like, God, this is so different. I don't even know what to do. I'm like, I know, same, but this beautiful quote from David White. He's like, you'll know you're on the path when the path disappears because there is no path.
mm,
And it's such a good reminder in relationship of like most of what we were taught, it ain't it.
mm,
And the true magic and wonder and beauty of life is like really lived in the unknown. Just like, all right, I'm gonna go start that business. All right, I'm gonna ask her to marry me. All right, we're gonna have a kid. All right, I'm gonna, whatever that version is. All right, I'm gonna go lose the weight. All right, I'm gonna hire the coach. All right, I'm gonna whatever.
mm,
What I'm gonna go sing karaoke. Whatever it is,
mm,
that courage to be witnessed. Whew, it is the sauce.
mm. Yeah. And something that I want to highlight for men who are listening, including myself, is you don't have to fix anything.
Yes.
There is
Yes.
nothing at all to fix. It
Unless she asks.
implies, yeah, hmm,
She asked me to open a jar of salsa a couple days ago. I fixed that problem.
yeah, sure. Yeah.
Please continue. Sorry.
Yeah. It implies there's a problem. And there's not. It's just what is. And it's incredible. In my experience, fucking brilliant at this, which is letting someone be where they're at and getting their experience.
Oof. It is something I've had to work so hard at because I spent
Mm-hmm.
so much of my life being like, if I fix this problem, there will be peace, there will be love, there will be acceptance, there will be a lack of shame, or all that. There will be a removal of threat, like any of those things. And
Yeah.
yeah, to now, like I was on a client call a couple days ago, it was yesterday, and my client was talking about how he was, struggling with his relationship with his family. And he got that he was using that as the excuse to just enough distract him from not accepting where he was at in life. He didn't like where he was
Mm,
at, but it was easier for him to blame his family as part of the problem than to be like, I'm just not where I want to be. And dude, when it hit him that was what was happening, and I said it, I prefaced it, I was like, I'm going to repeat back the words you just used. And when I do, the only thing I'm going to ask you is that you pause your protectors from jumping in and trying to justify it. Because I have a feeling that you're going to want to say something and try to make sense of it. And I was like, I'm just going to ask you to feel this. And I said it and I watched it. He was like, and he just lost it, just
mm,
started crying in agony of really getting that he was not where he wanted to be in life. And he finally accepted in that moment that that's where he was. And I watched him just wail and scream in agony. And I kept saying, like, I'm here with you right now. Feel as much of this as you can. I know this is your hell. I'm here with you now. Just helping him in that moment, let his nervous system let in as much of it as possible so it could express. And
mm,
it was so beautiful for him because like watching him just cry and just it was literally screaming, and then at the other end of it, it's just like chuckling of like, wow, I never saw how much I was using that story to be a victim. He's like, I want a different life and I'm ready for it. Now it's like, that motherfucker is a new person. That is a man who's ready to take responsibility for his life and change. And I was
yeah.
just like, let's go. I got so fired up, bro. I love what I do and get to do and
Yeah.
be for other people. So like when I get to see
Yeah.
that transformation happen and that light bulb hit, It lights the
Yeah.
whole city up, It was,
Hmm.
it makes the world.
Yeah. He now has a real shot at transforming that.
Yes. 100.
Yeah. He has a space to create now,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
not on top of, oh, but my life doesn't look the way that I want it to. So let me go do something in order to.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a true, authentic creation from nothing.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
It's just when you said that, it really, really struck me with how exquisite languaging is of just
Mm,
like, my life doesn't work, so I'm going to go do something to make it work. But if the foundation is it doesn't work, no matter what I do, it doesn't work because that's what started it. It doesn't
yep.
work. So everything after that is built upon it doesn't work.
Yep.
So why don't I just go look at why it doesn't work? Oh, it doesn't work because it doesn't work and it has not worked. Okay, I want to fix that. Not like it's like I hate my body, so I'm gonna go work out and I'm gonna go diet and I'm gonna go mindset and I'm gonna go visualize. And it's like
Yeah.
just own you hate it, fam. Just
Yeah.
own it for 30 seconds. Can
Yeah.
we just own that?
Yeah.
And sometimes that takes 6 months to get to that place where the protectors are softened and the guard is down. And it's like, yeah, actually I hate my body. Oh, wow, I felt that, and then the body's like, like,
Yep.
but like you said, there's a true space of
Yeah.
transformation available to be like, oh, I've been lying. And actually, this is the truth. And I always want to own that so that I can actually have a shot at doing something about it now.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so well said. And each action coming from the space of it's not working, like you said, just reinforces that it's not working.
Right.
Every action, bringing it back to the bodybuilding conversation, each and every action that I took reinforced that I hate the way I look. Yeah. And sitting with that, being with it, looking at it,
Mm-hmm.
feeling it,
Key.
then there's a space to actually authentically create something that moves, touches, and inspires you.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
So,
wow, what would it be like to, I don't know, what would it even look like to, or experience, or be like to be fit and healthy, or to model and embody really just an expression of myself that I'm proud of,
mm-hmm.
right? Like, whatever you can create, you're actually authentically creating from that space.
So profound. And it's
Yeah.
so subtle. That's kind of the funny part of this work. Some people will listen to this podcast and they will get it. And some people will listen to this podcast and be like, I don't understand what they just said. Or the third, some people will listen to this podcast and be like, those dudes are crazy. It is my narcissistic parent. It is my asshole boss. It is the weather. Like,
Yeah.
okay, go change the weather then. Let me know how that goes.
Hmm.
Something that just keeps resounding, because I'm sure some people will listen to this podcast, be like, dude, these dudes kind of talk funny, and I'm curious what your journey of just changing the way you use words has been.
Yeah. Once I got for myself that my words create my life, they create my reality. It then became, and there was a point in time where I would speak very, very slowly, consciously, like choosing my words to a point where what was informing that was like, don't fuck this up, or don't say something wrong, or don't do anything wrong as far as what I'm saying. Yeah, that's what really transformed it, was for me, was getting for myself, discovering that, wow, my words create the world. It's raining outside. What's actually so is it's raining outside. I can be that, oh my gosh, this sucks, of course it's raining, da da da. Or I can be like, oh, cool, fucking rain. Let's, I don't know, go jump in puddles.
Right.
Either way, it's raining. Yeah.
Oh, it's so funny. And it is that like simple yet profound, right? Of like, okay, it's raining. That is what's happening. That is
Mm,
currently reality. And then
mhm.
there's my interpretation of reality. Oh, I hate rain. Oh, I'm gonna get wet. Now I've got to bring an umbrella. This always happens. God, how gloomy, like all that. Or, God, I love rain. Like, oh, the earth is taking a drink right now, like whatever you want, like
Yeah.
What the snails are about to come out. Like whatever you want to be right about, you will be right about. And just know that that's what you're going to be right about. And
Hmm.
some people are like, well, that's not what I want to be right about. And you're like, well, some part of you does because it's still what you're committed to, and no, it's not. It's still their fault. It's like, okay, well, then you're committed to it being their fault, like, and
Hmm.
yeah, man, and you said it really early on in the podcast. It has been something that's really changed my life is taking a breath before I speak, like really pausing
Hmm.
before responding. Otherwise, I'll just react likely to the
Hmm.
question and really giving myself a space to be like, yeah, that's a good question, you know, and it'll be interesting to see how the editor cuts this podcast. If it might just sound like we're talking at normal pace because he cuts out a lot of blank, like just dead space, but I might be like,
Yeah.
leave it. Like, man, you talk slow on that one. Be like, no, we just cut out a lot on the others.
Scott must have taken a downer before this one. He's really slow.
Man, what a flex though, right? Like what a flex in the sense, like earlier when you were talking about like you had a point where you were talking really slow. I was like, man, this dude probably got cut off so much because some people
Mm.
are so enticed to be like, ah, so it's like, because I remember that was my experience when I started talking really slow and taking a breath was like, oh, they're talking again and they're talking again, like, and sometimes I just wouldn't even respond. And so we are like, well, you didn't really say much. I'm like, no, you just didn't shut the fuck up, And be like, whoa, bro. I'd be like, no, but seriously though, like I had something to say many times and you just kept talking. I
Yeah.
actually called a buddy out last week about it, you know? And like this is what I love about this work and people that commit to doing it. Like he was so graciously accepting. I was like, bro, last week when we talked, like you would not shut up, man. I was trying to tell you some really vulnerable things and you just made it about you and kept going. And he's like, dude, I'm sorry, man. Like, I just, like I could talk all day, but like you matter to me, bro. I love you so dearly. And I was just like, damn, I don't give myself a chance sometimes. Because
Mm.
he told me, he's like, bro, just tell me to shut up. I'll talk all day. Tell me to shut up. If you want to say something, shut up. I'm like, okay, got it. And
Mm.
that's my own self-love practice to practice that of like, hey, I got something to say. Like, will you give me a minute?
Yeah.
Whew.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. It's a practice for me to take on for myself too.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking up.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm curious actually, so it's been, I don't know, 6, 8 months since we've worked together. What have these new practices that have taken hold in your life been? Like what's going off on your own look like?
I do quite a bit of work with Landmark, as you know.
Hmm.
And there's a beautiful container to just continue to look at the parts of me that show up and arise inside of whatever it is that I'm working through and to share with another and on weekly calls or whatever that might look like, and to use the distinctions or really let the distinctions use me to discover things about different patterns and things that come up for me. It also looks like, and there was a period of time where I wasn't doing this, but for me, I maybe once, sometimes twice a week, love to just sit with marijuana, like just take a gummy and sit and meditate and allow that to hold a space for me to look at different things and areas of my life and
Mm.
how and who I'm being in certain areas with certain people in certain arenas. Just last night, I don't remember exactly how I got there, but I went back to an experience of, and I'm pretty sure I've shared this experience with you, of I was working at the supplement job, was manager in that position, making $13 an hour. I wasn't going to school. I chose to not go back to school. My girlfriend at the time and I had just broken up. I didn't have a clue what I wanted to do with my life. And I was depressed, really just sitting in it. And I remember thinking about my mom, and I'm 22 years old, 21, 22 years old at this time. And I'm there in the office. And I start to think about my mom, and my mom has done all of this for me throughout my entire life. And this is what I have to show for it. Just like shaming in myself and making myself wrong to reinforce whatever story it was that was informing all of that. But I really got from myself that what I made up is I'm a fuck up, man. I cried and I cried and I cried. And then I also got to look at too, like, I got to look at my life now
Mm,
and really see for myself. Well, one, I get that I'm a fuck up only occurs in language. Like more than conceptually, I experienced it. But two, like looking at my life now, it is so far from what people or I would consider to be a fuck up to the point where it was just like hilarious, actually.
mm.
That story that was sustaining, I would say, many of my actions, informing it. So yeah, those are some things that I do and take on for myself. I breathe, I meditate, I do cold exposure. I those are the things that I do for my own self-care and just really to ground and sit with myself.
Especially that last one, man, sitting with self. And I
Mm,
and I love the way that you shared on the use of cannabis to do that. I would assert that the vast majority of people are using cannabis as a drug. Fast, coping strategy, disassociative,
yeah.
tranquilizer, numbing agent, right? All that versus this opportunity to like, yeah, let's bring up that narrative. Let's make it loud. See what hell they
Yeah.
have. See what's really there, and like, okay, like that's let's just be real. That's what's there because that's what came up, and
Hmm.
okay, and learning how to sit with that and then do something about it. Man, like anybody who's really exploring the quote unquote use of plant medicine, like that's what a lot of these medicines do. They just like, hey, buddy, like this is the reality of the experience right now. We're just not gonna let you fake it, And it's like,
Mm,
oh no. It's like, yes, this is actually it. Own it, and I
yeah.
love that, man. It's such a profound shift. And you actually helped me really shift that with regards to like plant medicine and psilocybin of just like because every time you would tell me about it, like I knew like you weren't doing it to get fucked up. You weren't doing it to like get high. Like you were like, I'm gonna go in and feel some stuff. And I was like, man, that seems like really in integrity. Like that seems very like genuine, not like flippant. And it
Mm,
really changed my own use to those same compounds of just like, yeah, I want to go in and I'm going to take a look. Like, I'm not doing this to mess around. Like, I'm doing this to respect this plant, to honor myself, to really be with the experience that I'm having. And I don't think that's the vast majority of what people are using these compounds for. So I really acknowledge you for doing that.
yeah. Thank you. And it wasn't always like that.
Of course,
You
of
know,
course.
I used to use it to cope with things, and I would use it far more often than I do now. And it's not the thing itself, it's your and my relationship to it. So, the cannabis, for me, it creates a space.
Mm,
It slows things down. It has me, not, it doesn't have me sit with myself, but it enhances the experience when I am sitting with myself
correct. Yes.
to look at the different parts of me and things that show up inside of that. I call it Brian time.
I remember. I remember that.
I have
Yeah.
blocks on my calendar that say Brian time.
Love that, dude. Love that. We need more Brian time for all of us.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite things. I admittedly, I don't want to say I don't make enough time for it because I do make a lot of Scott time.
Mm,
It's just different, like I play tennis 3 to 5 times a week now.
mm,
That's Scott time. I go
love
hiking in
that.
the woods. That's Scott time.
Yeah.
Sometimes I don't want to call it Scott time. I also have a lot of Luce time.
Hmm.
I take her to the jungle or I take her to the beach so that she can run,
Hmm.
like so that I feel that she's getting adequate exercise and whatnot. But even still, like that's part of the gift that she is for me. It's like, hey dad, we're going into nature. You can call it Luce time if you want, but you're coming.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. We'll go to the ocean and just yeah, it's really beautiful the way in which life is a gift for all of us if we choose to see it that way.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm, well said.
It's it occurs to me as that is what this conversation has been in my relationship with you and just this magnificent intelligence of life to be like, hey, bros, you two are going to chill for a bit, get to know each other on a different level and get to know yourselves
Mm,
on a different level. It's been an absolute pleasure and treat to see myself in you and to witness what's possible, not just for life, but for the people in it
mm,
when I show up with the level of commitment that you've demonstrated, whether it's for bodybuilding or always being on time for our calls or anything. Like I really see you as a man of commitment and integrity, and I've always appreciated that modeling that you are for the world.
fully received, brother. Thank you.
You're really
Yeah.
well. This is wonderful, man. I really appreciate the time, Brian, and your attention and your just service to the world. It's
Mm,
really beautiful to see what you're up to, both for Landmark, for the LUC, for your partnership with Taylor, your family, for
yeah.
yourself.
Yeah.
It's really beautiful to witness, and I'm pleased. I was going to say I'm geeked. I'm geeked. I'm geeked to get to witness it, and selfishly to be part of it as well.
Yeah. Thank you, man. And it's, to see you posting on Instagram and to see you on a podcast that you co-created, to see you in relationship and to get a new dog and what that took as well, and your experience allowing yourself to sit with and grieve Chester and be with all the parts of you that showed up there as well, and to use life and what it's given you to just continue to refine the diamond that you already are. It's been such an inspiration for me in so many ways. Your impact on me, there are no words to express it. And I love you a lot, man. And I appreciate you so much.
Mm. So fully received. I love you
Mm,
too, brother.
yeah.
Well, thank you for the time today and for bringing all that you did to this container in this episode. And
Mm,
that's we're gonna have to do it again in the flesh. You're gonna have to come to Maui.
yes.
We're gonna do a take two. Until next time, thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you. And yes to Maui.
Yes, yes, awesome. And to our listeners, thank you for your time and your attention, your commitment to yourself, your own personal growth and journey, and your willingness to embrace all that you are. Till next time, aloha.